Thank you very much. So I'll try and just talk about how technology can help us to deepen our family values and increase intergenerational solidarity. One of the challenges that I find we have in our society, TV started at 4 o'clock. So when you came back from school, you had 2 hours where you really had no choice but to talk to somebody. um, and it was a different time because families had more time together. Today, we don't really have that anymore. And I'm not asking for it to come back because I know the pressures of living in Lagos. You wish the 24 hours can be 240 hours these days because you spent 5 of it in traffic. And that's just the reality of where we are as a society. But what that has meant is that oftentimes we are going from public space, workspace, and we have very little space for people from different generations to really sit down together and have any kind of discussion. And I think this is one of the roots of a lot of our challenges in our society, this absence of a third space where people can actually sit down together and commune as a community outside of church, outside of work, outside of defined spaces, and in particular the spaces for young people to do that. And it's something I'm hoping that we'll be able to solve in due time. But in the meantime, technology is perhaps the only other option that we have for us to be able to create those types of spaces. And I just want to share a few examples and thoughts in the very little time that I have about how I've seen some creative approaches to solving those problems. The first one I will talk about is meal times. Meal times, which sounds like a very, like what does, we are talking about technology family, which one is food now? You like food. It's true. It's true. But I think meal times are underutilized as a means of bringing family together. And that's primarily because, unlike back in the day, our mothers now work. So you can imagine going to work, you're tired yourself and there's no opportunity. And with the way the economy is looking, we are just trying to let us breathe. You understand? So the idea of going out somewhere to eat as a family, I mean, back in the day, we would have Mr. Biggs, maybe on Sunday afternoon. Mommy can take a break and go. And some families can afford that, but many unfortunately don't have that luxury anymore. But perhaps, one of the, and even, by the way, the most expensive part of it is the fuel to go and come back. Because fuel prices are not smiling. So, but one of the things that I spent a lot of time with very successful cultures, the Indians, the Israelis. And one thing I notice is that they don't play with meal times. I had the privilege of spending quite a bit of time with a few of my Israeli mentors. So I would go and see them in Jerusalem. I'll come back. And even the ones that are here as well, that are my very good friends. Every Friday, it doesn't matter what they are doing. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. Friday by 5 p.m., you show up at the house. And you show up at the house for the one meal that you must all have as a family. And then, of course, they invite close friends. And I've had the privilege to be at some of those things. They call them Shabbat dinners. Shabbat dinners. And what they do, I mean, they have rituals that, where they pray for the children. It's very beautiful to watch. They pray for each child and they kiss them on the forehead. I couldn't think of anything more affirming, And oftentimes it's 3 or 4 generations that are at the table, right? Where they sit down together and they just, fellowship with each other for a few hours. And they talk about what is actually happening around them and how they as a family should react. And they pass down a lot of timeless wisdom. So whenever my friends, and it's a high honor for those families to invite you to that dinner table. So whenever they invite, I always make sure I go. And it's not for the food. I don't even eat much. But I'm just listening to what exactly it is they're saying. And of course, it's a different level of trust when they invite you like that. So, it's something I wish that many more Nigerian families could attempt. And of course, to solve the problem of mother cooking and all of that, many times they just order the food in. They just order the food in. So they don't cook, they just make plates, order the food in. It's a lot cheaper than going somewhere or whatever. And, that allows the family to enjoy one meal a week together. And I think that is very, very powerful. And, why is that powerful? One very common mistake I see our young people make, and I've seen this a lot, is that they think they are the first people to experience everything. I remember my first experience of this was during NSAS, and that was when I started spending more time with my dad. Me and my dad, and as many kids, right? You have an interesting relationship with your dad most times, because when you're growing up, it's really your mom that you spend time with. And then when you're grown up and your dad has a little bit more time, you don't now have the time. I'm in an interesting situation where both of us don't have time. So I have to make an extra effort to make sure I see my dad every Monday, as many Mondays as I can. And then, in fact, one of the things we've just started to do is 1 month in a year, I travel with my dad, and we just travel. We go somewhere together, just me and my dad, just so that we can talk, because there's so much to download. So one of those Mondays during the NSAS issue, I went to see him, and I was like, this is, and so he was just telling me his own perspective that, you people, he literally predicted this is exactly what is going to happen, because I was your age when I was at Unilag, and the same thing happened. I was just thinking, this time is different. But, after I watched things play out the way they played out, that was when I started to say, it's like this man knows some more. I don't need to be praying for the prophetic when he's right in front of me. You understand? Let me go and sit down and hear what was it that they actually experienced. And if you notice, our country is in a loop. Times of abundance. We're now in a little bit of a dip. The headlines from, I started funding an interesting project by my friend Fuad. And what he does, he takes news clippings from old newspapers on the same day, and then allows people to see it. And the same headlines repeat. So as I've spent more time with my father, and I've been able to look into and understand his own perspectives about the country, I find that our opinions are becoming the same. Some of the things that I used to be very gingered about, it's very hard to get me excited about because the pattern will repeat. So I'm like, this is what it is. But I think to the next level, it's about now, how do we break out of those generational patterns? And that's where I think it's really important for families to define a legacy together. And again, this is another area where technology can help. Very few families actually have a deep conversation about death, even though it's a reality that all of us must face. Very few families. And I think it's one of the challenges that our culture versus other cultures have, where every death is unplanned, even though it is expected. It's a taboo topic, But something that I've learned to do, even now I have a 5-year-old, I have my wife, we talk a lot about, so what happens if you go? So what happens? And it's not because we are wishing bad, it's because it's a reality. At any point in time, you can go. So who should you talk to? Who should you manage your relationships with a little bit? Who should you, and of course the 5-year-old isn't into all the conversations, but slowly we're bringing her into, okay, understand, this is your uncle. This one, anywhere you want to go, this is the one that you should follow. If anything happens, make sure you call Uncle Nad. This person, don't worry, ask somebody before you go. And it's just really to give you a sense of, look, this is how the family is structured. This is who's in your family, right? Now, ultimately, when you think about how technology helps with those processes, it is usually we think of a will as something you just lock up in a box. But there's new innovations now where people are actually having living wills and testaments, where people are setting up family foundations, where people are being able to redesign their families so that they're able to pass on the family legacy from one generation to the other. But more importantly, it's not just about passing them on assets they've never heard about until the day you die from a stranger that is a lawyer. It's about educating them about what it is that the family exists to do, what it is that our own family's mission is. So for me, and even, for us as a family, the grown-ups and even the ones that are coming up, we take time to explain to them, well, look, this is what our family has done. Our family has 3 generations of preachers. So ultimately, at one point, one of us will have to become one. So you start to educate them early that this is what our family does. This is how our family works. This is where home is. I recently went home with my dad. He just told me, look, it's time for me to go. Before then, it's actually a funny story. Before then, people used to think I was from Lagos. I'm not from Lagos. So my dad started warning me. He said, look, I knew it's funny. He did it before the election. He said, when I was your age and I came, I too thought I was from Lagos. Then one day, bulldozers came and razed down my father's land in Morocco. Then I remembered I was not from Lagos. So as you are doing Lagos, better be looking. I don't want to speak Yoruba, so I'm sure many of you know the proverbs. Better remember home. So in fact, after the elections, as usual, my father sounds to me like a prophet. After the elections, I saw 1 or 2 things and I said, it would be a good idea for me to go and see where this home is. So I took a board position in my state's education trust fund. I bought a house in this capital city of my state. I even went to the village with them and started thinking, okay, so I went there, I looked, okay, what is it that we can do here? Most of my village is cashew farming. So now I'm looking at, okay, who can I find from the village that I can trust, train over a period of time in this cashew business so that together we can go home and invest in cashew farming. But these are things that if you don't have an opportunity for intergenerational solidarity, if parents don't have an opportunity to impart on their children, many of them, when you pass on, they don't even know where home is, right? They don't even know who to go and talk to at home. As I speak now, I have my king's number, my prince's number, right? So these are the small things that is impossible. And I also now discovered I don't even know how to speak my hometown's version of Yoruba. I don't know how to speak Igbomino. So now I have somebody that is now coming to teach me Igbomino so that I can learn. Because at the end of the day, that is home. And the beautiful thing is the technology makes it easier. It makes it easier to learn these things. I have now like a cousin that I didn't know before, that now is sort of he stayed home. He was closer to home. So he's now helping to kind of put me through how to think. And by the way, it's not because I'm running for office. Some people, the only time they get home is the year before they run for office. I'm not a politician. Me and Uncle Praise have done politics. I've ended it. So we're not doing politics. But it's really just so we can truly, truly understand what is actually going on at home. The third thing is around connection. Connection. There's one family tradition that I have that I really, really deeply appreciate, which is that on everybody's birthday, no matter where we are in the world, all of us must join a Zoom chat to celebrate that person's birthday. And it wasn't something that we always did. I mean, many, many, many birthdays passed, but having that connection and having a family group chat where at the very least you have the spouses and our parents has really, really helped with the family relationship, because now it's easier for us to act as a unit. We can't fight, because if there's any problem, I have to see you on that Zoom chat. We are far more aware. And part of what I'm even hoping we can do is then even start to organize, no matter where we are in the world, we can do family retreats. There's a lot of tools that make it a lot easier for you to be able to say, okay, we are going somewhere together. I normally see there are quite a number of very strong families that have started to do things like that. And I think it's very, very good, and it really will help a lot of families. So these are the ways that technology, I'm sure you're expecting something game-changing, but it's really about using simple technologies very intentionally, right? How are we making it easier for us to be able to get together for mealtime as a family as often as possible? I know many of us are in many parts of the world, so obviously a weekly tradition might not be realistic. But have you ever thought, okay, at least once every year or once every quarter, let's all get together as a family? We have one yearly event as a family. We always meet somewhere, either here or somewhere else as a family. Have you thought about, how you establish a platform for intergenerational solidarity? Do you discuss the goings of the day, and do the older ones take time to actually share their own experience? Not in a judgmental, oh, you people don't know what you're talking about type of way, but just telling them, look, oh, this thing that is happening now, it has happened before. This is exactly how it happened. This is what they did. This is what it is. Because I've seen so many, would I call it, national mistakes that have happened because we are stuck in a loop. The younger ones, the politicians repeat themselves. The younger ones don't know the politicians. They reinvent themselves. You understand? So it's not easy to know who is trustworthy and who is not. And of course, who else will you hear those stories from but from your own parents? And of course, the children have a duty to understand that they are not the first person to experience anything that Nigeria is today. It is all part of a loop. And then breaking it is now a function of defining new legacies to say, okay, look, we have to now invest deeply in defining new legacies through our family. And for us, one of the things that we take very seriously in our own family is education. Education. Because if you know where we come from as a family, that was what saved us. Right? My grandfather was a butcher, wasn't educated, but he spent all his money making sure my father got an MBA. My father barely used that MBA, but he opened doors for him and he set him apart from his peers. And that is what has now made him very prominent today. And like that. And so when we think about, okay, what do we want to invest in? We're thinking, okay, how can we invest in making sure the next generation of people serve society through education, right? How do we make sure that we ensure more and more young people, whether from our part of town or any part of town, are able to go to school? And that has really influenced even the way that I think about the businesses that I build, right? One of my businesses, Andela, trains software developers. I think of it as an education business, very much in line with what our family does, right? My father currently leads a congregation that's also very invested in different education institutions. secondary schools and a big university in Ajebo, right? So defining your family charter, this is what our family is known for, so that your children have something to contribute. Because if you actually read the Bible, every tribe had something that they brought to the table. It wasn't haphazard. And the tribes were organized by families, right? Some tribes, their own is their priests. Some tribes, their own is wisdom. Some tribes, their own is, tax collection. I don't know. But the idea is that every tribe brings something to the table. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we define our family's legacy in the tapestry of the country? What is our family bringing to the table in the tapestry of the country? And then build a platform for perpetuating that. It's not until somebody, the matriarch or the patriarch of the family dies, you understand, before we now start defining what our family's legacy will be and so on. And then finally, like I was saying earlier, it's really about leveraging technology to find as many points to connect as possible. Birthdays and different celebrations, despite the fact that we are far apart all over the world. And there are new innovations coming up, things that can help us. I'm going to end on this note because I know my time is fast spent. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was telling me that he's working on artificial intelligence to memorialize his father's wisdom. I was like, what? How does that work? He said, yeah, that he's done he's done interview, like a family interview with his grandfather and his father, and they've taken all those quotes and wisdoms and written all the things they wrote to them, and they're putting it into an AI so that when they have problems, they will go and ask. Yeah, they'll go and ask the AI, how should we solve this problem? And then the AI will now tell them, okay, this is how to think about it. So people are going out there, I'm not suggesting that one, but there are people that are using technology in very new and interesting ways. But I think it's really about focusing on the basics, right? Points of connection, creating times for meals, celebrating milestones together. But most importantly, leveraging technology to define a legacy for your family and contribute to national development, because that's what families are for. Thank you.
A round of applause for him. Thank you so much.
Dear brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters of Africa, as we stand here today, a generation is rising that's in danger of forgetting the power and resilience of our ancestors. We can't blame them, for it is our responsibility to remind them of the giants who came before us. We must tell them the stories of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who fought for free education and social welfare, of Kwame Nkrumah, who led Ghana to independence and showed us what it means to be proud and free, of Margaret Epo, who paved the way for women's rights and political participation, of King Jaja of Opobo, who resisted colonial rule and fought for our freedom. We must remind them of Queen Idia, a symbol of maternal wisdom and power, of Dr. Nelson Mandela, who fought against apartheid and racism and showed us the true meaning of forgiveness and reconciliation, of Thomas Sankara and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who fought for our dignity and self-determination. We must tell them of the Great Wall of Benin, which was greater than the Great Wall of China, of how the Benin Kingdom had street lights before New York and London, of how Amadioha and Shogo produced fire before the world thought about electricity. Let us dive deep into our history and legends at the African Family Life Delegate Conference 2025 as we reclaim our heritage and strengths and build intergenerational resilience. Let's remind our children and grandchildren of the power of ancestors and the greatness that lies within. May 2025 is the day we take back our story, our history, and our legacy. Join us. Let's rise again as a powerful and resilient African family we once were. Welcome to the African Family Life Delegate Conference 2025, reclaiming our heritage and strength, African history and legends for building intergenerational resilience.